About like when did you first start painting and what kind of painting?
I started painting back in 2013. I was never like into art like in school where you have like the classes and you're great at drawing, but I started art in 2013, and it came. I was on a date at a person I was dating at the time, and we went to like a paint and sip, one of those paint and sip things. And so like as I'm painting, I'm drinking the wine, and I kind of just went my own direction. And there's instructions of what you do, and I just did my own thing. And then I noticed at the end there were people like huddling around. They were huddling around the area, and they were looking at my art, and I'm looking at everyone else's. I'm like, theirs looks so good because they followed instruction, but they're like, no, this is beautiful, this is beautiful. And so it inspired me to take steps from there. But the way I felt when I painted felt really, really good. Because
So you've never taken any formal classes before then?
No.
Wow.
So the feeling that I had was the most therapeutic feeling at the time, and I was thinking about just a whole bunch of stuff like mentally. But when I was painting it, it was like a release for me. So there was nothing that gave me that peace, that meditational like feeling. And then I went from there, and then actually my cousin James introduced me. I started to like go home paint, and just I would paint like my beginning pieces of art were really dark, and like when I look at them, I'm like, wow, they're very heavy. Like you could see it, the energy is very, very heavy, very dark, and it had a lot to do with grief and just what I was going through at the time. And my cousin James told me about something called trap art, and he was saying like, you fit this crowd because there's different type of like art communities. It can be very cliquey or like super prestigious, and there's certain like my art didn't look like what I was seeing in like museums and stuff like that. And so he reached out to me. This is James Fields, my other half. You want to wear? He this is like my cousin, but it's like my little brother. We are very, very close. And
so he was encouraging to you when you started getting into the art?
Absolutely. Introduced me into trap art, and then we went from there.
So trap art originated where?
I believe it originated in Oakland in San Francisco. Basically, when I went there, one of my coworkers took me, and she was into art. So I'm like, wow, my cousin do art also. So I went to the trap art. It's basically like a party, but it's different artists. You got clothing line, you got people that do tattoos, you have people that paint in front of you, and etc. And I'm like, well, my cousin Mariah should come out here to San Francisco and show her art. So when I told her, she did her first art show. Was it Oakland? Art show?
It was,
Ministry.
I think Oakland or Minna. I can't remember. No,
it was Ministry. I think.
111
Slide.
That place there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I told her she should join it because like it was a diverse crowd.
Yeah.
Very diverse crowd. People come from New York. People
Yeah.
from Washington. People come from different countries. All come together and do art.
Shout out to Alina and Jesse.
So
They're
I
the
told her to
curators.
join.
Yeah. And then even the paint and sip. That I'd heard of that before. Essentially, that's kind of like you go in and you just do your thing.
Yeah.
Partake.
I noticed.
And sip.
Yeah, and sip.
And smoke.
Yeah, they have painted, and they changed over the years, like the paint and smoke and stuff like that. I mean, I was sipping a lot that night, and then it was a way to release emotion, and it felt really good.
So yeah, you mentioned that at the beginning. So what was it that you were releasing? Do you want to talk about what that was?
Grief. My parents, being a new mom, heartbreak, a lot of heavy emotion. It was a lot. And at that time, that was the only time I could feel like I could let it go without any judgment, without any feedback. It was my first time actually seeing what I felt like. You could describe something in words, and if you can be super descriptive, people can feel it. But when you show someone a visual of like the emotion I was feeling, I was facing myself in purging it out, and yeah.
I was going to say, it's kind of like you're expelling the demons on the page.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, and that literally, like, that's exactly what it was. It was a lot of, like, when I look back at that art, and it was heavy. There would be times where, like, he and I would be home. We used to drink a lot back in that time. We'd take a fifth. Go ahead.
So one day, we bought 2 fifths of Hennessy.
Okay.
It's like 2016, 15. So I'm like 23, 24.
Yeah.
We're our young days. We're still young, but still our younger days. And I said, let's get 2 bottles of Hennessy, one for you, one for me. So we're in the house, just drinking, listen to Weeknd, listen to Kanye West, and drinking. And I believe, I don't know if that was your first art I told you, but
The Brown Liquor Matters?
So I said, you should have a shirt called Brown Liquor Matters. This is a time when the police riots and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So like, how about do Brown Liquor Matters, since everybody loves dark, well, most people love dark liquor.
And we used, and that night, I remember, like, I was painting it for him originally. And I had started off painting a Hennessy bottle. But that night, I remember, that was like a night in July. That was right after, I want to say, like, Trayvon Martin and everything just happened. Mm-hmm. And he and I, like, we normally, like, the way we used to do our weekends is one night we stay in, the other night we go out, and then we go out again. But we had this routine. But anytime we had our nights in, we would, get food and, like, try to create or dance or do something. But that night, I remember, like, we were drinking, crying. It was just a lot of emotion that was coming out. And I ended up making that painting. And from there, Brown Liquor Matters turned into a brand. And I ended up turning that into a clothing brand. I literally invested my last $25 into it. You were there too.
Yes.
And because we went out that night too. And that night, that whole thing, I flipped that and invested my last $25. And I remember, like, I had, like, a moment where I'm like, okay, I have $25 left to my name right now. I could use this. I'm going to buy liquor. I will buy a bottle. So why not invest into something? And it became something from there. And that $25 is now a part of, like, my whole brand and everything now.